Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today to That Will Never Work podcast. I have a very extraordinary guest today. 12 years ago, she saw a desperate need in the recruitment market, quality recruiting to help startups succeed. Finding unique solutions for these organizations as they scale up their teams and operations. By combining the first impression systems, the cohesive culture method, and the compass leadership system into play with each of her clients, she acts as an invaluable resource towards driving success through effective hires and retention rates. One of the things that really gravitated myself to her because her energy, listen to her interviews and things like that. She has a lot of information to share with each and every one of you today, and I'm really excited to share her with you today. And I present to you today none other than Neha Naik. How are you today?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all the listeners that are tuning in right now. Excited to be here.
Sure, thank you. So before we get into any questions, right, I was reading your bio, and you are the founder and CEO of 3 successful businesses, right? So what encouraged you to even get into that space? Because some people can't even get to 1, let alone 3.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think for me, it was just, like I mentioned to you when we were talking before the recording started, I have 2 young kids, and
Right.
my journey started into entrepreneurship actually in med school. So
Okay.
I stepped away from med school, and my whole life I thought, well, I wanted to be a doctor. And then when that didn't work out, I feel like that really lit a fire under me, only to
Okay.
go above and beyond to really prove myself. And
Okay.
nobody likes to fail, nobody likes to quit. And I feel like
Yeah.
that was something that honestly just really drove me.
Okay.
And I was thinking about the type of legacy that I wanted to leave my kids,
Okay.
and the kind of, impact I wanted to have in the community that I live in. And basically have a ripple effect of that impact, right? So when you
Right.
impact someone positively, they impact someone else positively. And so all my businesses are surrounded around, bringing in positivity and value-driven relationships. And that's really where I feel like I shine.
Okay.
And I feel like, there's definitely, especially for women, we definitely feel like we can do one or the other. There's definitely that societal constraint. And I always say, like, you can have it all, you can have it all. It's just about prioritizing, time management, and your mindset, right? And if you have those 3 things, you can have like thousands of businesses. I think it just really depends on where you put your energy and how you shut down the naysayers and, believe in yourself and just confidently push forward. And I think that's really what's going to get you that extra mile to the next, level of entrepreneurship.
So I'm listening to you talk about your businesses, and you can have 1,000 of them, right? But as I look, and you have a recruitment agency, a sleep consultant, company, and a data analytics company, right? But one of the things you talked about was relationships. So when relationships come down is recruitment. How valuable is that in building your relationships with individuals, your clients, or whatever it is? How valuable are relationships?
I think they're very valuable in any and every business you work with, right? Or you work in. And I think specifically for recruiting, when you build teams from a client standpoint, and when I'm staffing people,
Mm-hmm.
I'm empowering people and leadership teams to expand their teams, which means they get closer and closer to being the next best product or the next best service, right?
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
when they grow, then the economy grows. So I think that's the impact there. And then for candidates, right, it's literally changing their lives because we do spend so much of our time where we work, right?
Right.
And so we want to make sure that when I do work with candidates, my team and I know that culture, motivation, logistics, technical fit are all incredibly important because once you
Mm.
place that candidate, I really feel like you can define a happy working person after the job ends, right? So once
Ah.
you shut off your computer, what kind of a person are you at home is what's going to define if you're happy or not where you're working, right? Because an unhappy person is going to be cranky. They're
Right.
going to yell, have tantrums, get into arguments for no reason. And you can see that at impact as a community or society. But someone who is happy, who belongs where they need to be because they
Mm-hmm.
love doing what they do, they're going to shut off that computer and feel extremely accomplished. An
Mm.
accomplished person is going to feel happy and they're going to want to give back, right? So my goal is building these relationships on both sides of the end
Mm-hmm.
is going to ultimately lead to happy societies, economically healthy societies, and
Mm-hmm.
just people that are growing professionally and personally.
So as I'm listening to you talk about being happy, that leads into one of the questions that you have, which is why does retention matter and keeping
Mm-hmm.
your high value clients or employees? How do you work that in and keeping someone happy with what they have going on?
Yeah, retention is such a hot topic right now. I think we saw this in COVID where people were like
Mm.
jumping ships because they
Mm-hmm.
realized what was important to them, in terms of the culture that they were working at. And it's even so important right now. And I like to think of retention and recruiting and compare it to sales, right? So if you own a business or if you're thinking of owning a business, it's always cheaper to keep your current customer happy than
Mm-hmm.
it is to acquire a new customer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been proven. This is not something I've made up.
Right,
And
right.
so basically, the truth is, it is cheaper for the business to actually retain employees than to go out and hire and onboard and train new employees, right?
Mm.
And so retention matters because at the end of the day, if you have high turnover and low retention, you're going to be burning your oil just hiring people, right? And then
Right,
onboarding them. And then it's like, oh my
right,
gosh, they're gone again. Let's start this process. So then your priorities get shifted, your
right.
deadlines get moved ahead. And ultimately, you're not able to do what you're supposed to do. And nobody likes to miss deadlines, right? If you're in a
Mm-hmm.
business and you want to get your product or service to a certain level by a certain date, and
Mm-hmm.
you're spending a lot of your energy, time, and money retaining or just hiring talent because they keep leaving you or you have to let them go because there's a mismatch somewhere in the
Right,
interview process or whatever, that's where your energy is going.
right.
And so then you're spending a lot of energy doing that instead of actually having, people that are on your team that can be successful for years to come, right? And
Mm.
obviously turnover does happen. Like
Right.
people are going to leave your company. It's about how do you control that and how do you make it to where people aren't leaving, every 6 months or every year? How do you
Mm-hmm.
make it minimal, right? So it's not impacting your business.
So with talking about just retention, how would an organization keep their clients just with AI booming right now?
Yeah.
And I try to explain to my clients that AI has been around all this time. We just
Mm,
called it something else, spell
yep.
check or something like that, right?
Grammarly, yeah.
you
There you
know,
go.
so how would someone not feel displaced because of AI in that in that in
Mhm.
that situation?
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I always say is that we have to learn how to work synergistically with AI and the
Mm-hmm.
tools. I mean, it's here, whether you like it or not, electric
Right.
cars are here, AI is here, right? So, like, fighting them isn't really going to help anybody. So, it's about how do you upskill yourself then to be
Okay.
able to use AI and make yourself like a better equipped, better skilled candidate,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to pay attention to. And I think AI will help in some of the grunt work. And of
Okay.
course, we are going to lose some jobs, just like when factories became automated, we lost factory workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this economic transition is nothing new. We've seen this all the time through
Right, right,
history.
right.
It's just a matter of now, now what happens? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the next step here? And I think the biggest thing is, and especially for women, because I'm, a working mom,
Mm-hmm.
it's just being able to have a, level playing field where you are able to upskill yourself. So if
Hmm.
like, hey, my job is at jeopardy because I think blah blah blah, learn a new skill, right? Go out there, learn a new skill, or learn how to use these AI tools so that, when companies are looking for people who can use AI, you are on that list, right? So instead of fighting it, learn how you can work with it synergistically. And I think that's going to be something that truly separates you from your competition. I also think when it comes to AI, have a mindset of abundance, right? So I feel like a lot of times we get sucked into that scarcity mindset, like AI is taking our jobs away. There's not enough jobs for us. The world is a big enough place for each and every one of us. And I truly believe that you're here for a purpose. And so, learn how to evolve. And that's the hard work we have to do, right? Like not everything's going to be handed to you, but how do you shift your mindset from scarcity to the one of abundance? Because things will come to you, right? But you will only attract what you think. So if you're constantly thinking AI is taking my jobs away, AI is like, that's what you're going to attract. So going back into like, how do I work with AI to then up level my job and get even paid even more at my next job? That's kind of the mindset we want to be taking.
So what do you think someone needs to do to get over that hump? A lot of us, because, it takes a lot. It takes a different mindset, to not, like you said, feel about the scarcity piece. Not just that, but even you have people that are scared of technology still, which is very interesting. So, so how do you encourage someone to just get over that little hump?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is, when it comes to mindset and getting over things, right? You have to let it affect you a little bit. And what I mean by that is confront why you're having these emotions, right? Don't shove it away and put it in the back burner. Don't look at it because that's not healthy for anybody. So if you are having thoughts of scarcity, if you are having thoughts of like abandonment by AI or of your company or whatever, write those thoughts down. I feel like a lot of times, when you're scared of something, it's your ego that's trying to protect you. It's trying to limit you from getting out of your comfort zone. So the minute you confront it, right, when you confront your fears and you have a list written down and you look at them and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like it's a lot in our head, right? So I feel like a lot of times when you confront it head on, you make a list of it. And then you, on the second, column, if you don't have two columns of like your fears, and the second column is what you can do to get over it. So if you're scared of AI, why are you scared of AI? Is it because you don't know what's out there? You don't know what the limitations are? Go Google what the limitations are and see how you can up level so that you're not affected by it specifically, right? So again, confronting it head on and then making a list of what you can do. And a lot of times, I really believe in like journaling and meditation around this, right? Because that really helps me like get whatever's in there out there. A lot of times the thoughts that you have are just in there to distract you, right? And that's what happens. And so really telling your ego to shut the hell up and go back in the trunk instead of letting it be like a backseat driver. I think that's what's really going to help. I was reading a book the other day and one of the authors, he talks about, it's okay to feel scared. That's part of psychology. Like we do have fear because otherwise all of us would be just jumping off of cliffs, right? If we didn't have that fear protecting us. So fear is a healthy thing, but put it in the trunk instead of letting it drive the car with you, right? And that's a mentality you want to have. It's like, I see you, fear. I hear you, but you're not going to let me, you're not going to run my life. Like, I understand why you're there. I understand your job is to protect me, but now that I've acknowledged you, you got to go back and shut up. It's my turn to drive the car. And just really taking that ownership and attitude.
So I think one of the things that, going back to scarcity, unfortunately, you see so many organizations talking about layoffs, right? And people are assuming, to some degree, from people that I've spoken to, they're assuming that it's AI, things like that. So how would someone, or who would you encourage them to say, you know what, stay out there in the job market? Hey, maybe you can become an entrepreneur. Use your talents and your gifts to create something different because we may not have your thoughts out there. So what would you recommend to someone that's kind of on the fence?
Yep. I think it really, everyone is case by case, right? So you've got to go back to the finances and go back to, what you bring into the family and what your lifestyle looks like, right? But I do think if you are tired of being bossed around by somebody else and you want to have that freedom and be your own boss, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't work hard. And I think that's a misconception is people think that once you become an entrepreneur, you're on a yacht somewhere, like chilling out. And that can definitely happen, but just not right away, right? So you've got to be able to have that motivation, that intrinsic motivation, along with the extrinsic motivation to go out there and prove yourself. And then go back to the basics, like go back to doing what you love. So I was actually working with somebody and she had a law firm. And she was like, I've always wanted to be a baker. I've been good at baking. I just never had the time because I went to school, then college, then law school, then I got married and have 2 young kids. And then I was like, why don't you start small? So what I had her do is on her Facebook page, I just said, like, I have a bake sale coming up. It's like a garage bake sale. It's going to be on Sunday from 12 to 4. And I said, just put out like a few items and make them, like moderately, expensive, not super expensive, not, cheap, and then see who comes. And she was like, oh my gosh, so many of my neighbors came and it was such a hit. And I was like, okay, how did that make you feel? Like, did that make you feel energized, or was that like, okay, I tried this, but I never want to do this again, And she was like, no, I really love that. And I'm like, do a couple more of them and then have a website, right? And then start talking about it. So there's a method to the madness, so to speak, right? A lot of people have an idea and they invest like $50,000 right away without a proof of concept. Have a proof of concept. So if you want to open a bakery shop, if you want to open a content writing, whatever it is that you want to do, start it small and then see, what the, the reviews are and, what people are saying about it, right? Even if you start it with your friends and family first, that's fine.
Right.
Once you have a proof of concept, look, introspect and see how you feel about it, right? Because a lot of us, the idea of it sounds good. And then once you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, like I would rather be a lawyer, right? See how you feel. And you've got to do it a couple of times, right? And then once you know, like, this is what I want to do, start it, right? Like, just hit the ground running. At that point, you've proven yourself, that you like to do it. There's, feedback from customers and there's customers waiting for your services. Go for it. But it always goes back to what the problem is that you're solving and why is it you? Once you can answer those questions, I don't think there's anything that can stop you.
So just explain to me a little bit more about Recruit Yan. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Oh, thank you.
You did.
Because it says here there's a boutique recruitment company that specializes in helping hyper growth tech startups build and keep a first-rate team. So what encouraged you to get into that space?
Yeah, so we talked about the med school debacle, and then once I left there, I actually got I interviewed at a bunch of companies just to see what's out there. Like, I didn't know anything about HR recruitment. I got hired by a healthcare company that was doing HR and recruiting.
Okay.
That's how I got my footing in recruiting. Once I was there after 2 years, I was like, this is really cool. I could do this for myself, right? But since I already had a job, I had to make sure that it was okay with my HR at the time that I could work. And they were like, as long as it's not a company of over 1,000 people, as long as it's not medical. And I was like, okay, that leaves me with startups. And so that's really how I got into it, right?
Okay.
And then once I got into it, I was like, I love this. I was able to scale my clients on freelance platforms, word of mouth, referrals, just doing like little promos and sales on social media. And then now I have a team of 35 people, right? That, actually work with me and do recruiting. And like I said, I have a 6.5 and a 3.5-year-old. So kind of doing it because again, I really wanted to prove myself that I could do it, right? So I had a couple of clients that I took on why I had my full-time job just to show myself like, hey, this isn't something that, I just woke up one day and wanted to do it on a whim, but this is something that I can sustain long-term. So that was like the biggest thing. So
one of the things that I don't want this part to be missed is that non-compete clause idea, because some people think, hey, I'm going to get up and do this particular job. I don't care what the situation is, right? So did you know about that up front, or is that something you had to, because of schooling or friends, like, how did you know something as simple as that?
Yeah, honestly, I've always been taught by my dad to like review all contracts that I signed.
Okay.
It's something that's always been ingrained in me, even since I was a little girl, right? So like, even when I got my first gym membership, I think I was like 15. And at the time, not everything was DocuSign. Like they actually gave you like printed, copies. And my dad was like, I was like, oh, I want to sign. And he was like, did you read the whole thing? And I was like, no, it's like, it should be like whatever. It's and he's like, no, read the whole thing. Right. And one of the clauses was you have to let them know 45 days before you want to terminate your membership. And he's like, see, you wouldn't have known that. And there's no way you would have known. And they would have charged you for an extra month. And so that's just been something that my dad has always ingrained in both my brother and myself when we were little. And so anytime I, sign a contract with a client or whatever, I like to be like super nitty gritty and take the time because it doesn't take that long, but you've got to read it. Right. And so when I read the contract from the company that I was with, there was a non-compete clause. And I had actually asked the HR manager at the time, like what this meant. And then she had explained that to me. So when it was when I was thinking about these and all these wheels were turning in my head, I was like, okay, I got to reach out to her and ask her if this is okay, right? And don't be afraid to ask, because they're not going to fire you just for asking, right? Like, just be curious and be like, hey, I was thinking of doing this. Like, is this allowed, right? They'll actually appreciate you being honest about your aspirations and desires. And so she was like, you can, but here's what you cannot do. And once I knew that, I don't want to end up in a court, right? Like, none of us do. None of us does. That's like the worst thing that can happen. So read the fine print always, read all your contracts, and then ask questions. You know, if you're not sure, like, can I have a website? Like, I'm still on W-2, I'm technically on 1099. Like, can I just ask those questions? Like, you are never going to hurt anybody when you ask those questions. And then once you have the answers, then you can really hit the ground running. So in my case, yes, I didn't know. But for those of you who may not know that this is a thing, just go back and read your employer contract, and then you'll be able to tell pretty quickly.
So I just wanted to point it out to the listeners, you know, even though you went past it, but there are some little nuggets that you're giving us, you know, for us to pay attention to, no matter what the situation is. We have to pay attention to some of the finer details of whatever we're trying to get ourselves into.
Exactly.
So, man, I really would like to go on. Our time is getting short, but, you know, one thing I do want to ask.
Yeah.
So, and I asked all my guests this question before we end the show. Is my would you rather question.
Okay.
Would you rather pick 3 doors, or would you rather pick a fork in the road?
Ooh. I would rather pick a fork in the road.
Really? Okay.
Because I really believe in, like, when it's 3 doors, I feel like the probability is 33% of you getting something good.
Right.
But when you do a fork in the road, it's 50%. But I also think that, you know, I'm a big believer in, when things happen, they happen for you. They don't happen to you. So I really feel like with the fork in the road, no matter where I go, it's going to be for my betterment. It's going to happen to me, right? Even though it feels like I may have picked it, it's going to be for me.
Right.
So that's why I would pick that. Really?
Now, when I first started asking this question a little while ago, people were picking the 3 doors. I want more choices. Well, most recently, everyone's been picking this fork in the road. It's very interesting. Now, I've had some very interesting responses, like people want to peek down the road, you know, things like that.
Can I peek?
You know, but you know, I appreciate you sharing that with us today. I know it's a very off-topic question.
No, I love that. These are the things that I think people want to know too, right? Like, get personal. No, I love that. And I love coming up with answers on the spot. So this was great.
Cool. So is there anything you want to share with our listeners, whether it's your social media, your website, any free information you want to give?
Yeah, so you can find me on my email address, which I'm sure Maurice will put in the call notes after. And then you can visit my website, recruitgan.com or nehanaik.com. And the Neha Naik one has all my businesses and what I do, etc. And the RecruitGan one is specifically for HR. So I'd love for you to see what I do. And, you know, just let's talk. I'm big into networking. I'm actually going for a networking happy hour in 2 hours. So yeah, if you're ever in Houston, hit me up. Let's meet up and let's network.
Hopefully it's not as high as it is today.
I know. Let's hope not.
Well, Neha, thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the information you have given. You have been very inspirational for what you've given today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem. So thank you all very much for listening today, and be sure to tune in for more episodes of That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.